Today I'm putting in a mini split air conditioner with the help of my stepbrother, Ferd. His name's not really Ferd, but it's Fred. Anyway, we're putting in a mini split air conditioner. Here's the steps you need to take. The first step we're gonna do is we're gonna start in the bedroom where we're putting the inside unit, and we're gonna work our way down to the outside unit. This is an inverter. This is a heat pump, so it will actually heat in the winter. This is an upstairs bedroom, and it's the only upstairs bedroom, which is why it gets hotter up here while we're putting this in. But this is an inverter, which means the motor inside the unit outside and the fan pump in here, the fan blower in here, run on DC. The thing behind that is DC, you can control the speed of the motors, where AC you can't. An AC motor will run at the same speed all the time. A DC motor can run at various speeds. So when you look to get one of these, get one that says inverter, and it will be much more efficient, because the more it needs to cool, the harder it'll run, and the less it needs to cool, the less it'll run. So we got the inside unit out, and what are you gonna do first?
First thing we're gonna do is take the mounting bracket, mount it on the wall, and we're gonna measure for our refrigerant lines and the drain line.
Gonna measure.
So we core the hole through the wall. And these have springs on the inside to keep the pipe from kinking.
Right, so just go slow though.
Always go slow. And just make sure you don't kink the pipe. Let's mount this dude on the wall.
So do we need to figure out, yeah, we need to figure out how it's gonna fit in there.
It's gonna go just like this on the wall.
So we're clearing out the area, and we're gonna go right up under that vent, and we'll do some measuring and figure it out real quick. So we figured out there's a stud right here, so we've got one screw going into the stud without an anchor. We put a level right here. We put a level on this once we got our distance from left to right and up and down. And now we've got our holes marked here, and we're about to put holes in the wall to mount hollow wall anchors in there. Just using a screwdriver to punch a hole. Now we'll be able to tap the hollow wall anchors that it came with.
I'm gonna run this screw through the sheetrock since I don't have a smaller screwdriver. Yeah, there may be a stud there.
Hey, score. Check the other. Yeah, we
Got lucky.
We landed on that. If you're using a screw gun to put screws in the wall or in anything, if you're using a drill, you're doing it wrong. Use an impact gun. They work so much better. They don't strip the screw heads out. It's just far superior. Always check your level, plumb, level, and square. We don't need plumb and square on this, but we do need level. So now we've got our bracket mounted to the wall. We got lucky and hit studs on both sides, so we didn't have to use any hollow wall anchors, so that was perfect. That thing is solid. You could just about sit on this thing and not have any problems. Now what we have to do is figure out where to bore a hole in the wall that these can go through. And fortunately, they'll be outside of this area somewhere in here, and hopefully we won't hit a stud since we just did right here. So with any luck, we'll be in good shape. Otherwise, we're gonna have to use probably have to use a power drill instead of the cordless to get through all that. So in order to figure out where these go through the wall, they're not gonna go through like this. They're gonna come through like this. So what I did was I put a tape on this. This is 32 inches across. So I set this at 16, knowing that would be to the center. And then we're looking at about 14 inches is where, from center, is where this pipe is going to go through the wall. And then about 1.5 inches up from the bottom. We haven't figured that measurement yet, but we'll do that here in just a second. So we're going to come over 14 inches from the center mark that I put under this. I lined this up with this. So we're going to come over 14 inches and bore a hole at the right height based on where the bottom of this is going to be. The bottom of this clips in right there. That clips in to that right there. So from that clip, we'll come up about 1.5 inches, which should put us 14 inches over, and about right here is where we'll bore that hole. Yeah, I like it.
Your wall.
Yeah, go down just a touch. I think you're a little high. And you've only had one beer. All right, let's do it. Perfect.
Nothing like a mess.
Yeah. Hopefully his drill's long enough. Story of his life. There we go.
There's the helper.
Thanks, Ozzy. Get back, buddy. All right, now we've got a hole all the way through. Yeah, perfect. We didn't have any wood behind it, so now these will go right through there. And now, how does the power get to this?
We'll run it through here too.
So the power wire is not hooked up with this. This is all just refrigerant line and drain line right now.
We'll run the power wire separate.
So do we need to hang this before we run the power, or we need to run the power through here first?
We can just feed it straight through this hole here. We'll open the front cover. You can take the electrical panel off, and you can just push the wire right through.
Oh, gotcha. So we'll be able to see it from the other side. So we don't have to do it now. We can go ahead and hang this. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's hang it up. And we can feed this all the way through both those holes. And it's hanging there, but it's not fully in yet.
Yeah, it's not clipped. We'll leave it loose till we get the power wire hooked up and everything.
Gotcha. But it's hanging up. The next step is to put power through, or?
We can figure out where we're gonna run the refrigerant lines through the floor.
Okay, so yeah, next we have to come and get these lines that just came through. We're gonna have to go through the floor and then down into the closet downstairs and through the floor and down under the crawl space and out through the outside wall. We got to figure all that stuff out and run those. So on this, he's cutting the carpet out where he's going to drill through. This is just kind of point and shoot here. We don't have to measure anything, just whatever looks good and makes sense.
Good with this?
I'm good with that.
Come on,
come on, Ozzy.
Hit a snag.
Yeah, it'll break your wrist if you're not careful, so be careful. The cordless drills aren't as bad about that as a big serious drill. I got a 1/2-inch hammer drill that will really and truly break your wrist if you're not careful. There we go. You want to keep the blade spinning. Okay, so that subflooring is actually the tongue and groove.
And there you have it.
So we got light. Awesome.
So we'll go downstairs and drill the next hole. So
we're in the closet downstairs where the duct comes through, and he's cutting the carpet back, and we're going to run a stud sensor across there to see if there's any if there's a floor joist under it, which way they run, if we're going to run into any problems, so we know where to cut the hole. Stud sensor starts acting funny on you, get a new one. They do that after a while. I highly recommend this one. I'll put the name of it in the video because it shows you exactly where the wood is, where there's a floor joist under it. So right there where the lights are, there's a floor joist right there and nowhere else.
So we should be good.
We should be good to go ahead and drill right down beside it like we did on the first one. What we have here is these units come with a little bit of everything you need, but it's usually not enough length. The wires aren't long enough, drain hose isn't long enough, the refrigerant lines aren't long enough. So we had to go and get long refrigerant lines. Like these are like 30 feet, 35 feet, 35 feet, drain line and electrical. And what we're gonna do is they're gonna end up hooking up to these. We're gonna run them down through that hole and then downstairs through the other hole into the crawl space. And then we'll go out to the crawl space and run them outside through the wall out there and down to where we're gonna put the unit outside. Now we're checking, there's two different size lines. There's a 1/4 inch outside OD and there's a 3/8 inch OD. The 3/8 inch has a 1/2 inch fitting on it, and the 1/4 inch OD has a 1/4 inch, says by 1/2 inch. You can see it here, 1/4 inch by 1/2 inch. That should be what size the fitting is and what size the tube is and what size the fitting is.
You want both lines to be insulated.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
liquid line acts as part of the metering device.
So this says 3/8 and 1/2 inch, but these two are different sizes, so something's a little off there. So what you want to do is you want to check, leave these caps on, check to make sure that these match your inside dimensions. The two pipes that you've got on the inside, make sure that those match so that they'll hook up properly. So ideally you would roll these out flat, but we don't have enough space in this area to do it. So he's feeding it out and unrolling it. Go slow with copper. You will pinch it and then it will be worthless and you'll have to buy more. So he's just feeding that down through, and then I'm gonna go downstairs and catch the other hole. So right now they've got everything pushed through the ceiling. That's the electrical wire, the drain wire, the refrigerant lines. They've got it all pushed down, and we're about to run it down through the hole in the floor in the closet here, and I'm about to go up underneath the house and we're gonna finish pulling all this stuff through. Feeding these down through there. He's still upstairs feeding them. And then we'll go out, I'll go up under the house. But first, time for a beer and pizza. Today's project brought to you by Yingling and Little Caesars. All right, I'm up under the house and you can see the refrigerant lines are down here. And we're gonna pull the refrigerant lines all the way out as far as we can and run the other lines down through there. All right, you can feed refrigerant lines. So we've got all these, plenty of pipe, and I drilled a hole through the wall with a hole saw. And I'm gonna take this stuff, all this drain and everything, and feed it through there in the power, and then we'll finish up outside and we'll be ready to charge this thing and get going. So we got all the pipes and hose and everything run up in. He doesn't have these connected yet because he's kind of slack like that. But right now we got the black electrical wire pulled through the box, and then he's gonna wire it in according to the instructions.
This is power is fed from the outside unit, and it needs to be wired up exactly like the outside, 1, 2, or 3, or some of them maybe S1, S2, S3. 2 are hot legs, and 1 is a communication cable. And they have to be wired up the same or it won't work.
And you might burn it up. So pay attention to the instructions. This is not one of those cases of when all else fails, read the instructions. Go ahead and read them first. This room apparently had an oven in it at one time because there's a 220 outlet right here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn the breaker off and I'm gonna unhook this, pull this outlet out, remove the wire from it, then go up under the house and pull that wire down and then take it outside and put that in the back of the disconnect box. And that way we'll have straight 220 going out there without any splices. So after checking the breaker, I grabbed my meter and checked to make sure none of these wires were hot, and they weren't. And now I've removed them from the plug, and I'm feeding them back down through there. When I get back up under the house, you'll see where I've pushed them down through the wall. So this is where that wire came through the floor. I'm gonna take this wire and I'm gonna put a hole about right here, and then we'll pull that out. There we go. We'll just put some great stuff in there and we'll be good. So we got all the stuff coming out of the wall that you've seen us run so far. We got a disconnect box with those wires I just pulled, and all this extra that we're not going to use. We'll cut and flare that and hook it up. Got the pad leveled up and the unit in place, and Ozzy says everything is good to go. So we're ready to make the next step, which is start hooking it up. One hot,
2 hots.
the other hot.
Line side. And the load side goes here to the unit.
And then we'll take the white and the neutral and put them on the grounding block at the bottom. And And then we'll bring the electrical whip, this piece, and hook it up. What we're doing here is something that you should not do. Do not do this. Okay, you will not be in code if you do this. However, the ground and the neutral go to the exact same spot on your load center, on your breaker panel. They go to a long lug that looks just like that. So the reality is, it's totally okay to do this, but you will not be in code if you do it this way. So you should not do it this way. We're doing it this way. And the reason is, for the other side, we need the ground wire for the electrical whip, which runs from the disconnect to the actual unit. So in order to make this work, we only have two. We have 3 wires going to it. We had to do that.
There's your wiring diagram.
Wiring diagram is in there. You got rubber grommets in there to run the wires through. And do these have 1, 2, 3 on them like the other unit?
Yeah, same wire needs to go from outside to inside. 1, 2, 3. I did red, white, black instead of red, white, blue, so I can remember that.
Gotcha.
And then ground. Line 1, line 2, that's your 208, 230 volt coming in, and then your ground lugs.
So you're going to have your 2 hot coming in here,
Ground.
and the ground, and then you're going to have 1, 2, 3 that actually was the black wire that we ran all the way upstairs that carries power and signal upstairs.
Correct.
To the actual inside unit. I mean, I'm pretty handy, but there's no way I could have gotten it done anywhere near this fast. Just having done it a few times, you know, a few hundred times, whatever, makes all the difference in the world. So we cut one of the 2 pieces of copper pipe tubing, and now we put the flare nut on. Now we're gonna flare it because it was way too long. So now we've got it to the right size. And if you don't have the right tool, you got to have a flare tool to do this. If you don't have the right tool, you will booger this up.
Good seat on the nut.
A cheap tool will end up cracking your copper or whatever.
Got a little burr in there. I just like to verify that you get a good face matches up with the flare. Then we use Nylog. It's a gasket thread sealer. It's good for flares and it won't contaminate the refrigeration system.
Pro tip.
I don't think you can get this at Home Depot.
You probably get it at a local heating and air supply company. Probably order it online.
Nylog.
But that's a thread seal instead of using Teflon or something like that. That'll help keep it from leaking.
No channel locks on brass. Always an adjustable hammer.
Adjustable hammer?
That's right.
He ain't that smart, but by golly, he's slow.
That's right. That's torque to proper specifications.
That's a torque hammer. Always be nice and gentle with your soft copper. They got soft copper and hard copper. Soft copper is this, and it will pinch up on you in a heartbeat. So you're just pulling these up to figure out how far to cut this off. Use just regular old pipe cutter. If you don't know how to do this, it's real simple. You just snug it down, turn it, snug it down a little more. I'm sure you can find other videos on that if you don't have one. These are pretty inexpensive tools. You can spend a lot on one. If you're only going to use it a few times, you can spend 15 bucks on one too.
We'll wring the pipe out. Use a tubing cutter, not a saw or a hacksaw or a quarter band. Always a tubing cutter on refrigeration pipe.
It's got a cutting wheel up top and then 2 wheels that it rides on the bottom as it rotates. That'll give you a good a good, nice, let me see the end of that. Gives you a good, nice, even cut. It doesn't squish it or burr it or tough it up or anything, but you can see how now it won't fit on this flare. So that's the reason he's going to use the flare tool. Now I'm going to go around and cut the other end off and get the flare nut that actually came with this unit. You can use another flare nut, but the one that came with this unit definitely will fit. So that's why we're going to cut the other end of this off and get the flare nut for it.
This one just came with caps.
So you put your flare nut on first. If you don't, you'll end up cutting it off and doing it again.
After your pipe's too short.
Yeah. Key when you're setting this up is to make sure you've got just the right amount of tube sticking out. And a nice one like this has a guide on it that stops it in the right place. The cheap ones, like I have, don't do that. So you got to be pretty good about getting it on there in the right spot to get a good flare, because if you do it in the wrong spot, you'll end up over flaring or under flaring, and if you over flare it, you'll break your copper, and if you under flare it, it won't make a good seat. And you can see he tightens it up, then loosens it back a little bit, and tightens it up. A little of the old in and out. Good looking flare. It's clean, fits on good. Some thread sealant.
This isn't always necessary, but I've had situations where the nut would actually leak. So if you don't have this, you can put the blue pipe dope on the threads only. Do not get it inside the piping.
That's the reason to use this if you got it, because it won't contaminate the system where other things will. Nylog will not contaminate the system. Don't use it in your still or water situations or something like that, but for refrigeration systems, it's good stuff. And your adjustable torque hammer.
Toward the factory specs.
Now, why do you have these caps off?
The service valve is shut off to the unit. The unit's charged with refrigerant now. So once we pull a vacuum through this port, we get the vacuum down to where we need it. I don't have my micron gauge. Once we get the vacuum pulled, I'll break the vacuum with refrigerant. We'll open this up to the system. It'll release the recharge in here, and we'll fire it up.
And the system will be charged already. So
Yeah.
it's already got enough refrigerant in the system.
For a certain amount of lines, 15-foot line set maybe.
So we might have to add some
Yeah,
refrigerant
we'll add a
because
little
we
bit.
added about 20 feet of line to it.
Yeah, so we won't have to add much.
So we've got a vacuum hooked up to the larger of the two, the suction line,
To remove the non-condensables and moisture.
to remove the non-condensables and moisture. So water will not compress. That'll cause a problem. So you got to get all that stuff out of there. So you're vacuuming it down, and then
It'll pull out any moisture under negative pressure.
right, okay,
In a vacuum.
right, pulling a vacuum on it. Now this is on the line that goes upstairs to the inside unit. Positive. So how do we know when this is done? Just let it run. Oh, we got gauges on it.
Yeah, gauge. It's supposed to have a micron gauge, but we don't have a micron gauge available today. This is the weekend.
Right. Now will you shut it off and watch the gauge and make sure it doesn't leak?
Yeah. We didn't have nitrogen pressure test.
So ordinarily, if you paid somebody to do this, they'd they'd fill it full of nitrogen and wait to see you
Pressure test.
put the pressure up to here and wait to see if it slowly leaks down, and if it does, you got a leak, or if it stays right where you put it, you're okay. We're going to do the same thing except with a vacuum this time. So this is why you can't do this yourself. You do need somebody who has the equipment, because you most likely don't have this type of equipment hanging around your house. And if you did, you might not know how to use it. we've done pulling a vacuum. Now explain what the way you're supposed to do this.
You're supposed to weigh the charge in per length of line set. Everything will be in the IOM instruction owner's manual. But since I put a whole bunch of these in, we're gonna do it like this: break the charge, break the vacuum with refrigerant. I usually do about 50 to 75 pounds of standing pressure. R410, use liquid because it's a blend. So we're not gonna need much here, since I think we went, what, 10 feet over the
Yeah, over what came with
the
it.
recommendation.
Yeah.
So we'll do that, and we'll open the service valves. Which will release the factory charge.
So these come pre-charged with refrigerant in them already.
Correct.
And that's closed until now. He just opened that valve.
Now the valve is back seated.
So it's closed off open.
And it's still open to the service port.
So now it can draw in from the service port as needs, because we just pulled a vacuum on it.
Now we can turn on power and adjust the charge. We should have some cool air.
Let me go turn the power on. All right, here we go. Got the remote hooked up.
I'm standing behind.
Hit the button.
I'm going to stay behind the card in case it blows up.
79.
Those are like ones in Greece, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Those things are bomb.
It'll take a minute.
Yeah, it's blowing.
You got that, I'll go out there and wash the dishes.
All right. Well, this is exciting. Standing here watching an air conditioner. So it's blowing cool air. You can't hear it.
Let Sadie be a part of it.
Ozzy's been all in this video. You can't hear it, but you can sure feel it. So the upstairs right there is our bedroom. That's the only upstairs that we have. So it was hot up there. So that's why we put this unit in. So you can do about 80 or 90% of this, but you need somebody with the right tools and the right experience to actually turn it on and make it work.
And some help.
And some help.
Some good help.
Well,
This
mean,
is
you should get some good help.
Not company.
I didn't have good help, but
This
you
is
should get some good
misunderstood
help.
here. Just checking out some good help.
Yeah.
Where's good help? I don't see any good help around here.
Company doesn't count.
Company is not good help. Not the same thing. But go ahead and order one. I got this off of eBay. You can get these things. They're not expensive. I spent about 600 bucks on it. And it'll help tremendously because, like I said earlier, it's DC, so it runs at the right speed for the situation. And when you're done, you're gonna have a great air conditioning, or if you get the right unit, heat pump for your situation.
I got a feeling I'm gonna freeze.
You are gonna freeze because I'm turning that thing down low tonight. But you gotta have somebody with the right tools and the right knowledge to help you actually get it turned on. But you can do 80 or 90% of it yourself, as you saw today.
With help. Not company.
Enjoy and have a good time.
Have a good evening, everybody. Thank you, Wayne, for all your help.
That's Ferd.
Lumberjack, you did great. It was a long day, but it went well.
Yep.
And it's paid for itself because it's freezing in there. See ya.